Welcome back to WGN-TV Political Report. The presidential election is just over 4 months away, and with no signs of the pandemic stopping, November 3rd is set to be an election day unlike any other.
That's true, Tamam. The risk of spreading coronavirus at the polls has led to a massive expansion of voting from home by mail across the country. President Trump has long cast doubt on the validity of that process, despite much evidence to back his claims and using absentee ballots himself. A tweet from the president this week again claimed mail-in voting would lead to a corrupt election. In Illinois, the Democratic-led legislature easily passed a one-time expansion of the state's vote-by-mail program for this fall.
And joining us this morning are Suzanne Chod, Associate Professor of Political Science, and Bill Muck, Professor and Chairman of the Department of Political Science at North Central College in Naperville. Thank you both for your time.
Hey, guys.
Good to be here.
Could you talk about the steps local election officials are taking to verify the authenticity of mail-in ballots? President Trump is very concerned about voter fraud in voting by mail.
Yeah. Bill, do you want to take this one?
Yeah.
No, go ahead. You start.
We both want to talk about it. So one of the things that Bill and I have talked a lot about in some of the presentations and we want to really try to stress is that before ballots are sent out, once ballots are sent out, and then after they are sent back in, the amount of checks along the way to ensure the validity of the ballots and also to ensure that the people that are filling them out are the people who are supposed to be. So this starts with checking addresses to make sure that where the person is registered, first of all, they are registered and then the addresses match. Each ballot in each jurisdiction across the country, the ballots are unique, everything from the weight of the paper to the order of what's on the ballot. So then it's filling out the ballots. Each ballot has its own unique ID code, barcode, so that once they are mailed back, they are scanned through a system and not more than one ballot to one barcode can be submitted. So again, along the way, there's checks from beginning to end.
And Bill, let me come to you. Look, everybody uses the terms mail-in voting, absentee ballot, as though they're very different. What is the difference?
Yeah, so when you have a voting by mail system, that means every registered voter within a state will get a ballot without having to request one. An absentee ballot system is where you are required to request that ballot. And so states throughout the country have different systems for that. Some are excuse, some are no excuse, where you can just basically say, I want an absentee ballot, and one will be sent to you. So the main difference is that a true voting by mail system is you don't have to do anything, and that ballot shows up in your mailbox. An absentee system, you have to request that ballot, and then there are rules for doing that, and then the ballot will be sent to you. But at the end of the day, you will get the ballot through the mail, and there's no fundamental difference in terms of how it's received or recorded.
So, Bill, Illinois is a blend then, right? Because we just request it, we don't have to say why, we get it.
Exactly. And you're seeing more states do that. So California's followed a similar system where you're seeing states across the country try to make it easier for their citizens to vote.
Ballot harvesting, what is that, and is it safe, Suzanne?
So ballot harvesting would be this idea that ballots would be, I want to say stolen, but in some cases stolen, taken out of mailboxes, taken out of precincts, even polling places, and either put away, so taken away, so that less ballots would be counted to try to benefit one or the other. President Trump has asserted that people will be waiting outside mailboxes to take ballots out, whether that be ballots that were already submitted and filled out, or ballots that have still yet to be delivered to someone who requested one. We just know that the case that this is just rare. If almost never happens. And I will note the one time it did happen in North Carolina for a congressional race, it was actually staffers for the sitting member, a Republican member of Congress, where we saw this happen. And that was the only time we have seen it.
Bill, this is going to be a very unusual year with the prevalence of mail-in voting. We might expect not to have a winner on election night. If we don't, will that delay promote the argument of fraud and interference?
I think it's a really good argument for making sure that the public is aware that that might happen. So there's an extra responsibility on our public officials to realize that this is going to be a very, very different election. Yes, I think it's absolutely likely that we're not going to know election night. It may drag out a day or 2 days afterwards, unless we have a landslide election. And so the American public can absolutely handle that, but they just have to be prepared for it. So our public officials, elected officials, need to be very clear about that. And I think there's also some pressure on the president to tone down down some of this rhetoric, the idea that this system is corrupt and not fair. Because if he continues to push that, there certainly will be people who buy into that argument. So I think it's incumbent on all of us to try to get the story out early that this is going to happen.
Let me ask a process question. What happens if I mail in my ballot and officials find that there's an issue with the envelope or my signature?
So specifically with the signature, often what happens is if everything else with the ballot looks legitimate, but there's something with the signature that is off, they go back to the voter roll and cross-check the signatures. There are multiple times when someone registers to vote where you'll have a signature on file. And so that's often what happens when there's a signature issue. In terms of the barcode, if it's ripped or torn or something like that because of the envelope, as long as that barcode hasn't been scanned before, which would mean that someone would be for some reason trying to vote more than once, often those ballots are accepted. Most of the time when we see ballots rejected, it's because they are not in on time. And so that to the question previously about not knowing who the winner is going to be potentially on the night of, let's vote early. Vote early, get that ballot out, make sure it gets there. And if there are problems, they can be cross-checked on the back end so your vote can count.
Bill, everybody seems to accuse everybody that an increase in mail-in voting will help one party over the other. Is there any data that shows that mail-in voting helps Democrats or Republicans?
No, and in fact, the data is overwhelming that it doesn't help either party. There have been a number of studies that have been done, recent studies looking at the states that use the system, and what you see is that no party gets one benefit, and that it's incredibly fair, right? That's the thing. The two claims the president has leveled is that it's going to benefit the Democratic Party and that there's going to be fraud. And the data, the evidence, the research that's been done suggests that's just not true. It's unclear who would benefit, if anybody. The data is overwhelmingly clear that it's not going to help the Democrats or the Republicans. It may increase turnout slightly, but the president's claims are just not accurate.
Suzanne Chod and Bill Muck, thank you for joining us.
Guys.
And we should mention everyone should watch your online video on this topic. It's really, really informative.
Yeah, great team. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to
Thanks so
take one
much.
last break. A look at the weeks ahead after this. Stay with us.